We've all experienced quiet, right? But have you ever really sat with it? I mean, sat with it long enough for it to totally change what it even feels like. Today, we're going to explore what happens when quiet stops being this unsettling thing and actually turns into a deep, stable foundation for your whole life. It always starts out kind of strange, doesn't it? When all that noise, from the world, from our own heads, finally dies down, the silence that's left over can feel like you've landed in a foreign country. It's just not a place we're used to hanging out in. And yeah, that unfamiliar feeling, it almost always slides right into being uncomfortable. You might start to feel fidgety, restless. You get that itch to just fill the space with something. Turn on some music, find a podcast, just think about anything else to escape that pure lack of noise. Sometimes it can also just feel empty, like something important was just taken away. We're so wired for that constant hum of activity that when it's gone, it can feel like a total void. But here's the interesting part. What happens if you don't fill that void? What if you just let the quiet be? Well, this is where a really fascinating shift starts to happen. The whole experience begins to transform. Okay, so this first big shift is a huge one. It's all about going from a feeling of something's missing to a feeling of something's here. Let's break down how our whole perception of quiet can completely flip on its head. See, at first, we define quiet by what isn't there. We notice there's less thinking going on, we feel the tension in our shoulders easing up, there's less movement. Our entire definition is based on what's absent. But if you can stick with that feeling of less, your perception actually starts to change. The quiet stops feeling like an empty space and starts to feel real, substantial. It goes from being the absence of noise to being the very real presence of calm. So how does this actually happen? Is it just some kind of mental trick? You just change your mind about it? Not really. The real transformation happens on a much, much deeper level. And this is absolutely the key takeaway. You cannot think your way into this state. It's not an idea. It's a physical, biological process. It's your body, your actual nervous system that's learning and adjusting to a new reality. And this just lays it out perfectly. Your nervous system is always scanning for danger, right? Well, it finally realizes it can stand down. There's no threat here. And when it does that, your breathing just settles all by itself. Your muscles let go of that constant low-level tension. And your focus, which is usually zeroed in on the next problem, just naturally widens out into this open, relaxed awareness. It's so important to get this. It's not some huge, dramatic event. It's a gentle, natural unfolding. It's just your system settling down on its own. But this simple, gentle quiet, it gets misunderstood a lot. Now, when people hear about this deep kind of calm, they sometimes get the wrong idea. It's really easy to confuse this state with something else, something a lot less alive. So let's clear up a really common point of confusion. This stable quiet is the total opposite of being checked out. It is not numbness, where you just can't feel anything. It's not some cold disconnection from the world, and it is definitely not indifference or not caring. Actually, it's a state where you're more sensitive, but in a very calm way. This quote just nails it. You still feel things. Life still happens. You still respond to what's going on around you. The only thing missing is that draining background hum of being on high alert all the time. That feeling of being constantly braced for whatever's next. So what happens when this isn't just a state you visit for a few minutes, but it's actually where you start to live from? Well, it fundamentally changes your starting point for, well, everything. This is really the end game here. That calm presence we've been talking about, it becomes your new normal. It's your default setting. It's the ground you stand on, the quiet background against which all of your thoughts, feelings, and actions happen. And just think about how powerful that is. Imagine your thoughts and your actions not bubbling up from a place of anxiety or stress, but instead rising up from this deep well of clarity and stillness. The quality of your work, your conversations, your creativity, it all changes. And maybe the most beautiful part of this whole thing is this. You don't have to build it. You don't have to strain for it or try really hard to achieve it. This quiet is already there. It's just what's left over when all the unnecessary effort, all that constant mental scanning finally stops. So I'll just leave you with this question to chew on. We spend so much of our lives scanning for problems, for threats, for what we need to do next. What do you think would be left for you in your own experience if all that unnecessary scanning was just allowed to fall away? What would you find in the quiet that remains?